WarsawJS.
Awesome. Thanks everyone for coming. I'm Tomek. I'm on the internet, and I work at a firm which is a post-IPO fintech that just opened a branch in Poland. We are just entering hypergrowth mode, so exciting times. And I work there as an engineering manager. Previously, I was a startup founder. Previously, I was a web developer. I even presented here on this stage to you about micro frontends 6 years ago, back way before micro frontends became a popular thing. So hearing all this, you might be wondering, why should I listen to this guy talking about burnout and depression? He's no professional in that realm. And the reason I'm telling you about this is twofold. One of them is that in the tech community, both of these problems, both burnout and depression, are very, very prevalent. So according to a report that went out last year from Just Join IT, burnout, 70% of people in the tech community report experiencing burnout, and 10% report being diagnosed with depression. So imagine, on a 7-person team, there's a 50-50 chance that one of them is clinically depressed. In a 30-person company, there's 99% a 99% chance. So this is a problem that touches, if we're working on teams, even if you are not experiencing this, I'm pretty sure this is influencing you through other people as well. And secondly, I've been through 3 episodes of burnout and one episode of depression, and throughout this process of getting out of them and back into normal functioning, I have personally tested 10 tools that have helped me a lot and that I want to share with you. So if that sounds sensible, we can move on to the first tool. By the way, I will tell them as a story. They I hope that this will help you understand them better, but also remember them better. But please don't treat this as this is the plan of action. First do this, then do this, then do this. I'm in no place to give you any advice. I'm treating this more as a kind of buffet that you can use and see which tools maybe resonate with you, and which and see if they work for you specifically. Yeah. So without further ado, let's move on to the first tool, which is openness. Oh, by the way, there's something wrong with fonts, and I didn't make this typo. I promise. There should be a double S at the end. Maybe if we switch to the PDF. Oh, by the way, I will share a PDF of these slides, and you can check it up online. It's these typos are not there. Anyway, openness might seem kind of wishy-washy. But it's actually a very concrete thing. What this means is if you're not feeling well in any sense, just tell people about it. Don't try and kind of process it internally, because this, for me, this was the thing that actually set me on a path of coming out of depression, of receding from the depression. Specifically, I was very lucky to have loving people around me, people I could trust. That was at the time when I was leading my startup, so I had a team of co-founders. I could be open with them about the problems I'm experiencing. I had great mentors. I had close family, close friends, and one of them actually. Oh, and by the way, this is not something that only I say. There's these ladies, Emily and Amelia, I think. They're experts in burnout. They've written books about it, and they say that the top cure for burnout is a support network of loving people. Probably this is based on strong data. It's not other things that other people say. For me at least, it wasn't. And one of those people was very insistent that I try what became my second tool, namely psychotherapy. So if you're like me at the time, you might be thinking that it's again something kind of wishy-washy, like talking about some childhood memories and stuff. I actually even, like at the time, I even had previously tried psychotherapy for one of my previous burnout episodes, and it cost a lot of money and it didn't help at all. So I was pretty reluctant, but the person that I was talking to told me about one specific style of therapy, because there are lots of styles, like psychoanalysis, like Gestalt and stuff. Like there's hundreds of them, I think. And but this specific one caught my eye pretty much. Cognitive behavioral therapy. It's very kind of scientific. It's like cognitive means you're getting to understand things. So this is about understanding and processing them. So you're getting to understand how your brain and body works. And behavioral means you kind of make little changes in your behavior and observe with this cognitive part how it affects you. So it's kind of like test-driven development, so to speak. So this worked really well. It also delivers results pretty quickly for everyone I've talked to that has tried CBT as well. My therapist also is certified acceptance and commitment therapist. It's like a kind of newer version of CBT, so to speak, which is definitely worth looking into. And I also tried for one of my burnout episodes. What helped was solution-focused brief therapy. This was literally 3 sessions, and it set me back on a good path. So all of these are tried and tested by me. You can learn more. This is a really good book, A Liberated Mind. It's about ACT, but it goes through all of the therapy styles and kind of compares them to each other as well. And at one point during one of the sessions, my therapist suggested that I go to a psychiatrist and get medication, and that set me on a set me on a path to discover the third tool, which is curiosity. So one of the symptoms of the depression that I was experiencing. By the way, this isn't showing me how much time I still have, right? It's how much time do I still have?
Yes.
Yeah. Enough. Barry's not here, our time expert.
As long as Barry is not here, you have...
Okay. Sorry, I have 20 minutes? No. Really? No. Okay. For the talk and the questions. So I've got like 10 minutes left, and then. Okay. Awesome. Awesome. So one of the symptoms that I was experiencing was what's called lethargy and apathy, or apathy. I don't know how to pronounce this in English. Anyway, it's like, maybe let's zoom back a little. One thing that I think makes the tech community especially susceptible to burnout is that it likes to touch people who are really passionate about what they do. Most people I know in the tech community are really passionate about what they do, and for some odd reason, this passion sometimes turns into burnout, and that's what happened to me. And the thing about burnout is that it's the complete opposite of passion. So this feeling of being completely absorbed into something, it was kind of long gone for me. It was like a distant memory of being kind of really interested in a topic and kind of digging into it. And learning about this, medication that I was supposed to be taking, SSRIs, it set me on a path of getting to know more about, stuff like how does the medicine work? How does what side effects there are? What's how does this bring about an improvement? And this got me on a path of kind of digging into how my brain works, digging into how my body works. And this was the first time in many months where I got drawn into something again, like something awoke my curiosity. And I discovered along the way, a lot of great content. A lot of great content that I'd like to recommend to you. This is just the tip of the iceberg, but on the first and foremost, Huberman Lab. This is by a doctor called Andrew Huberman, who who very generously shares broad and deep knowledge about neuroscience and like everything kind of holistically related to our brains and bodies in a very engaging way. I couldn't recommend this enough. Then there's a book with possibly an explicit word in the title, which was packed with practical tools that did help me. Some of them. At the start of my depressive episode, like one of the things that triggered it was anxiety, and this third book, Unwinding Anxiety, helped me deal with this anxiety and kind of productively escape from it and deal with it. And the fourth is a talk about gratitude. It didn't make its way to the top 10 tools, but it's also one of the tools I used. And it's incredibly interesting because there's a like cutting edge research about a thing called like neuroplasticity, which basically means your brain's capacity to actually build new networks in your brain and physically change itself. And we can actually influence it. And it's used in some very cutting edge research on like psychedelic assisted therapy and stuff like that. But actually, we can use very, very simple tools to also trigger these same mechanisms, the neuroplasticity mechanisms. And one of them is gratitude. Please watch the talk if that sounds interesting, because this is a tool that everyone should use, in my opinion. It really increases the quality of life in my experience, which also is a good place to mention that these tools, I think, so as far as I'm aware, these tools are helpful not only for dealing with a depressive episode or a burnout episode, but also preventing the onset of a depressive episode or a burnout episode. So even if you're not experiencing it, it might be useful for you personally, or it might be useful to someone on your team, for example, who's experiencing some of these symptoms. Anyway, this path of kind of digging into how my body works hinted me and kind of showed me another tool. It's tool probably number 5 or so, which is diet. It turns out that like the same stuff that's achieved through or like similar processes that are achieved through medication can also be achieved with like simple lifestyle changes. For example, foods, fermented foods. That's an interesting thing. So the bacteria in our guts are pretty smart. They've actually learned how to imitate our brain and release dopamine, for example. And so they like some of those bacteria, the bad bacteria, like sweet stuff. So when you're eating sweets, they're happy. So they've learned how to kind of influence us to eat more sweets. Yeah. Fermented foods are doing the opposite. They have lots of good bacteria, and they are helping us. They are helping us kind of maintain balance in our brain. Also, believe it or not, the stuff that these bacteria produce, like serotonin, for example. I think 95% of serotonin, which is like the molecule that makes us happy and satisfied, is produced by the bacteria in our guts. And fermented foods and also vegetables, which are the third, they kind of help that bacteria grow and make us happy. And tryptophan is a substance again that kind of that's a necessary ingredient of serotonin. So you're eating tryptophan, like pumpkin seeds, tuna, turkey, and lots of other foods as well, which you can read about in the notes below. And it's like a building blocks for serotonin. If you're not eating tryptophan, there's no way that your body can even create serotonin, because our bodies can't produce tryptophan themselves. There's also some dietary supplements that helped me. EPA, which is one of the omega-3 fatty acids, it also I don't want to get into the nitty-gritty of all this, but please feel free to ask me later in the networking. It's pretty fascinating. I could go on for hours about each of these, but it's time to move on to the next tool, which is Sauna. So it's something that I really enjoy, and I was very pleased to find out that that regular use of sauna is very helpful for all the different, for many different aspects of our body, including mental health. So this is a graph of showing. I think the researchers followed 2,000 people throughout 30 years. So imagine how big an undertaking this was. And they found out that people who use sauna more often are 3 times less likely than the ones that use it less often to develop psychotic disorders, which is also one of the kind of hallmarks of depression. And this is just one of the many findings that apparently support this. Another related tool is ice baths. I know this is not for do any of you do ice baths? Oh wow, that's pretty. Wow, half the room. I'm amazed because I know that this is. Okay, yeah, I know that this might seem pretty scary and stressful, and of course it's not for everyone. There are some precautions. So for example, if you've got heart disease or stuff, you shouldn't be doing this. But if you do, it increases. It's great. Yeah. So there's this other molecule that makes us happy called dopamine, and dopamine is one of the reasons people take cocaine, because cocaine, this is the baseline of, is this is me kind of not happy, not sad. It's called the baseline of dopamine. Then what cocaine does is it increases the level of dopamine 3-fold, so you're kind of 3 times more happy than you usually are, and then you crash three times more sad than whenever. And but what's as far as I know, the ice baths are one of the maybe the only thing that does increase the level of dopamine, believe it or not, as much as cocaine does. So 3 times as much as the baseline, and it stays there for hours. It stays there for I think 3 hours, and there's no dip below baseline. So you don't get the downsides of dopamine highs. Oh yeah, the drop in dopamine. It also releases norepinephrine, which helps offset some other depression-related symptoms, which is great. Another tool is just having fun. It might seem pretty simplistic, but for people who are depressed and to some degree also to people experiencing burnout, it seems very difficult to find pleasure in anything, it's pretty common to see, at least it's a story I hear all the time from people that are depressed, that people keep telling them, oh, just go for a run, or go meet your friends or whatever, and this will help you. And the most common answer is, oh, you don't know nothing about depression. It's a completely different state. I can't do this stuff that you're telling me. There's no who told you that this would help. In fact, there's very strong scientific evidence that this stuff, going for a run, very, very simple tools, it's got a long list of very, very robust studies showing that this is actually one of the most effective tools to get out of depression. There are some really nice graphs in this article, so I will share it later, and I encourage you to check it out. Basically, it helps us break out of this vicious cycle of inactivity leading to depression, and then depression leading to more inactivity, and this kind of spiraling down into just sitting in place and doing nothing productive. One thing to keep in mind is it's good to at least in my experience, it's good to avoid things, pleasant things that are also stressful, like video games or certain kinds of I don't know, shows on Netflix or stuff like, I don't know, thrillers or horror stories, because that actually kind of can make things worse in some cases. So please stick with things that are fun. Like humor is a good is so kind of viewing funny content rather than kind of exciting or scary content. It also proved more effective for me. We're almost at the end. Sleep is one thing that is another thing that I discovered that I noticed is helping me a lot. And actually, there's some very clever people. Kind of there's even hypotheses that sleep is kind of more important for our kind of long-term like happiness than the stuff that we do during wake time. So while we're awake. I've even heard of hypothesis that like the thing that kind of distinguished us as humans from the rest of the animals is the fact that we can, for a bunch of reasons, we can sleep on our backs, and therefore we like a whole array of things like vivid dreams allowed us to evolve these big brains and social connections and language and stuff. So the vast majority of adults need 7 to 9 hours of sleep. So if you're not getting that much, please change your habits if you're into this stuff. And I can assure you that I managed to do this. Like when I read this book that's at the end, Why We Sleep, I very highly recommend it. I actually managed to change my habits from like sleeping 5.5 hours on average a night to 7 hours a night throughout a 3-month period. And it's like I've been doing this for like 3 or 4 years now. So it's possible to change your habits. It's very difficult, but it's possible. And this book, he's also got some talks on TED, and he's been on Joe Rogan's podcast as well. Matt Walker, he's a very good wake-up signal that kind of helped me power through with this. The 9th tool is time off. One surprising finding that I made was that with the 26 days of paid time off that most likely most of us have at our companies, plus public holidays in Poland, you can have 8 full weeks of time off throughout a year, like 8 vacations for a week, pretty much. If you're clever enough to, if you kind of cleverly stitch it together with the public holidays. I found through experimentation that what I need to kind of keep functioning sustainably over long periods of time and retain my energy is 1 week of fully disconnecting from work every quarter. So like 4 times a week. Like, obviously this will be different for each of you, but it's definitely worth putting the effort into experimenting. There's some, of course, like me by now, there's some kind of deep neuroscience backing this up as well. So if you're into this, if you're into understanding like why it's the case, there are lots of sources here to dig in, to spike your curiosity, speaking of the tools. And one, I think this is the last one, exercise. I just happen to really like weight training. It has a vast array of benefits other than just helping me take good care of my mental health and keep my energy levels high. But there are lots of other things that you can do if you're more into other stuff. So there's a lot of content about this in the episode about depression of Huberman Lab. There's some pretty simple science behind. Actually, there's like multiple different mechanisms on very different levels in our bodies, apparently, that kind of helps us that makes exercise so effective. So, for example, it gives you norepinephrine, so it gives you lots of energy. So it's actually it might seem like exercise burns up fuel, so it might kind of take away energy from us. But in terms of kind of brain energy, which is a mix of chemicals that give us a passion to do stuff, there's strong evidence that exercise actually gives us mental energy instead of taking it away from us. So if you feel like you're too tired to exercise, I think try exercising, and you might find out that you are less tired after exercising, which is pretty counterintuitive. There's a really good book called Bigger, Leaner, Stronger which is for guys, and Thinner, Leaner, Stronger, which is for girls. Obviously, feel free to read whichever is more relevant to you. And a really good episode with again on the human lab. I can't recommend it enough. And before we wrap up, I want you to keep a couple of things in mind. Like as I mentioned in the beginning, these are the tools that worked for me. Feel free to try them if you want them, but keep a close eye on how they are working for you, because the fact that they are working for me doesn't mean that they will necessarily work for you. Certainly not in the same way. Also, if you do see symptoms of poor mental health yourself, talk to a psychologist or a doctor, a health professional, just as I have. So definitely don't listen to some engineering manager talking about mental health and kind of take his advice, because I'm not giving you advice. I'm just sharing tools that I've discovered. Secondly, none of these tools is a substitute for medical treatment. As I mentioned in the talk, I decided, or maybe as I implied in the talk, I decided against taking medicine, but not like taking SSRIs, the medicine for treating depression. But this was decided together with a doctor. So it wasn't like the doctor told me to take my pills and I said, oh no, I'm going to do some other stuff. So what I did was actually I pulled up these tools that I did discover in the meantime and showed them to the doctor and said, hey, why don't we try these instead? See how they work. And the doctor said, okay, let's try this, and let's do some. Let's just verify that they work. And we've set some thresholds to make sure that I don't need these medications later on. So please don't treat it as a substitute for medical treatment. I also didn't treat them as a substitute. And again, the tools worked for me. It's pretty important to note that not all of these, so some of these tools might be unsafe for some people. So if I was giving an example of like ice baths, possibly being unsafe for people who have heart disease or diabetes. It's similar with sauna. I think with like everything we do in life, there's like certain things that are kind of warning signs to not do them, and it's the same with these tools. So please proceed with caution. And it's also worth reading through the links, because they have lots of valuable information that's kind of relevant. So before we move to questions, just make sure you save this link. you can access the slides online over here. You can scan the QR code or just visit the link. And I'm all yours for questions. Thank you.
You mentioned that fermented foods are good for the producing the hormones, yes?
Neurotransmitters, yeah.
Yes, neurotransmitters. Does beer count?
Actually, yeah. So actually, like as far as I know, the newest findings are pretty clear that anything that contains alcohol actually kind of kills the good bacteria in your gut, at least to some extent. So I myself.
I'm sorry, I just wanted to ask about this. By fermented foods, you mean like sour cabbage, right?
Yeah, like sauerkraut, like pickled cucumbers, but not the American kind. Sorry, Barry, the Polish kind.
No, that's why I'm here. Exactly. So, because I eat a lot of sour, like I can't go without pickles or cabbage or some olives or something with my food, and I eat it. So, does this mean that this is kind of balancing out these bad bacteria that I have that make me also a lot sweet?
Yeah, I think so. So one thing I've heard and also observed in myself to some extent is that on the level of our body itself, so not the bacteria but our body, the parts that digest that digests the the stuff that's related to fermented food, and also to some kinds of amino acids, which is like a lot of like good food, like protein, for example. They are also kind of satisfied by sugar. So and it also works the other way around. So if you're craving sugar, if you really want to eat a donut or like 10 donuts or like a whole bucket of ice cream, you can try eating some sauerkraut, for example, instead, or some kimchi, or some pickled cucumbers, and sugar craving likely will go away. Like, just check it, experiment. Like, I really encourage you all to kind of try different things and see how they work for you.
But if I eat a lot of sugar, but then I eat a lot of pickles, is this like good for me?
You know that sugar is not good. You know this already. You know that eating a lot of sugar is not good.
I was saying the other way.
here?
So if you really want to eat a lot of sugar, try eating pickles instead. That's what I'm saying.
Yes. So regarding your earlier question about cold exposure in particular, actually some breathing exercises called Wim Hof method or Tomek breathing are an introductory exercise that mimics kind of cold exposure. So they
that's
can
awesome.
be a good replacement for people who cannot do that or are not ready. But my question is, you have used burnout and depression kind of interchangeably throughout the presentation. However, isn't burnout like most relevant and most often experienced by people who have people-oriented jobs, like when they have a lot of contact with people, like nurses, like psychologists, and people who in theory shouldn't like software developers be kind of low in that?
So to be honest, I don't know. I'm not an expert. I'm not a burnout expert. I know that I've experienced it in like both in a setting when interacting a lot with people as part of my work, and also in a setting while I was working as a developer and spending most of the time with code. And you inspired me to read up on this a bit because like I'm only speaking for myself. I got it from one and from the other. No, also as a developer. So 2 of those 3 burnout episodes were so one of them was at the start of being a founder. One of them was I actually got one from each career from each profession. I got one as a developer, one as a startup founder, and one as an engineering manager. So there's no rule. Also, there's a difference between being tired, even exhausted after a day of hard work, and burnout. Burnout is more kind of, it comes slowly. It's very difficult to say when it started, for example. And I think the main symptom that I've seen in myself when I was diagnosed with burnout was that I have no energy to pick up any of my tasks, right? So I'm like being, oh no, I don't feel like doing this. I don't feel like doing that. Like I just need to force myself kind of to do this, right?
I will say this: a passion for your work. If we had this question in the last meetup, if you have a passion for what you do, if you wake up in the morning like yes, and you're doing what you do not for the money, not because you need to pay bills, not because you have dependents, not because if you really love and you engage with your work and it motivates you, then the chances of burnout are very low. That's just been my experience, and I'm 162 years old. So that's what I would suggest. Really love what you do, and if you don't love what you do, find something that you love.
I would like to add is that when you are passionate about something and you are, push it to the limit, you can then also be burned because when you are playing with
you can be exhausted
with fire, you can be burned. Yeah. So this is from my perspective, thinking when you are too active and you forgot about all those tools you mentioned, you will be definitely burned at some point.
Yeah, that's my experience as well. Like even though I really love what I do, and I did experience burnout. You know, I was diagnosed with burnout, and I managed to get out of it without changing my career or even changing my workplace. So thanks to these tools.